Hey guys, Rocco here. Today we're taking a look at the FeiyuTech AK2000, an exceptional gimbal for a really good price. Let's get into the video. FeiyuTech actually sent this gimbal out to me for free, so big thanks and shout out to them. Very friendly company, great service. I'm not being paid to say anything by them. However, they did send me this gimbal. All opinions are mine. Right now, just trying it out with a Canon EOS 60 full-frame DSLR with a 24 to 105mm lens. And it's actually handling it pretty well, and haven't had any issues with the motors or any vibrations or jitters. Nice and smooth footage, very good gimbal, feels great in the hand, works with most cameras so long as it's not too top-heavy, and yeah, it's just great value from just the first impressions. Now I'm going to show you some footage that I shot with my T6i and 6D. So the FeiyuTech AK2000 was sent to me by FeiyuTech themselves, and it came in this nice, very tightly packed box. And it took me a while to get the actual gimbal's box out of there, but once I did, I was met with a pretty good foam case, nice and light for if you wanted to carry the gimbal around. It's not the most high quality case, but it works and it is nice and light, so that is a plus. Inside the case was the gimbal itself in a few different pieces, so you would have the main part of the gimbal and the tripod, and then there was the charging box for the batteries, and then the batteries were in their own little container. The box also included control cables, the base plate for and then a lens support mount. So, very nice unboxing experience, once I put my hand on the gimbal to feel how it was in the hand, it's a feels very nice in the hand. Great, excellent grip on the handle. Very good build quality. Now you just saw those shots that I took earlier, and they were all shot with my Canon T6i and the Canon 6D. Both cameras worked well with the gimbal. However, the T6i works better because it has autofocus, and the 6D doesn't have autofocus, so you gotta trade off somewhere. So I'd rather put my T6i on than the 6D, but for the demonstration purposes, I only had two cameras that could do video. So I put the 6D on, and then I put the T6i on for my friend to film me for the B-roll. And the gimbal makes very smooth shots, and I was actually pretty impressed. I didn't actually have to change too much in the settings to make it just right for the camera. However, I did have to turn down the motor strength a little, but it is noted that you shouldn't turn it down too much, because when I turned it down too much because I thought it was too stiff, you gotta find the right area, because if you do it too much, the gimbal is gonna start wobbling, and it's gonna look pretty weird. What is it doing? What is it doing? What on earth? I was pretty concerned when it started happening, but just turn the motor strength up and it'll be fixed. So this gimbal, took it around, took some shots. The only other gimbal I really have to compare it to is the Moza Aircross, which is what I was using before. And I have used a Ronin S, however that's in a different tier, and I also only held it for about 20 seconds just for a photo. Build quality of this gimbal is very good, works pretty nice, and it's even nicer that you have the touchscreen on the gimbal. Most gimbals in this price range don't even have like a really good joystick or like a follow focus system availability or whatever, but this gimbal has a touchscreen, and it also has that little roll or just custom function knob on the side of the gimbal where you can just make it do basically whatever you want. You can make it do the tilt follow, pan follow, or even roll. So it's pretty useful when you're just walking around with the gimbal in your hand and you want to fine-tune something. You will have to set the sensitivity for that a bit lower because sometimes it does jerk around a bit. But if you set it too high, sometimes it won't actually like turn fast enough. I don't know why, but I couldn't get the panning axis to turn as fast as I wanted it to. I think that's just an easy software fix, probably in a future update or something. But other than that, that little knob is actually very, very useful to have on the gimbal. This gimbal has a trigger on the back, which I have never used a gimbal with a trigger before, so I didn't really know what it did. I thought it was like some kind of like locking mechanism, like I've seen in other videos for other gimbals, but figured out if you're in pan follow mode and you hold the trigger and point the gimbal down, it's going to follow. It's going to put into tilt follow, and then once you let go, it stays back in pan follow. So that actually is pretty useful. So even if I was in pan follow and I wanted to look up at something, I could hold that trigger and then point the gimbal up. And if you double click the trigger on the back, it'll flip it back to a very nice feature, works well. Battery life on the AK2000 is very good. Despite having the touchscreen on and all the other like features and leaving it on, putting it on the table to go do something real quick, it lasted me 2 days. Like, I could use it for 2 days. The battery is rated for about 12 hours of just constant shooting, somewhere around there, and it handles that pretty well, and I was able to recharge it in like an hour and a half. Another thing is the app is also quite useful, and it's actually like one of the better designed apps I've seen for gimbals. It's very well designed. The functionality is good and it works pretty well, and if you need to change any settings, you can change them in there. I've used a variety of lenses on this gimbal, such as the Canon EOS 10 to 18 millimeters and the 50 millimeter lens, which is shooting right now. And then I've also used the 60, the 24 to 105 millimeter. It's a kit lens for full frame. Works pretty well. The 24 to 105 was the largest lens I put on it, like I said before. And I did have to move the 60 back on the plate to balance it. But it didn't really hurt the functionality of the gimbal, and worked just fine. Now, balancing this gimbal. Sometimes gimbals are really hard to balance. This one, I've never really tried using a recessed motor gimbal. All the other gimbals, like the Moza Aircross, the one I've been using before, has this upper motor. But let me tell you something. Having a recessed motor on the FeiyuTech AK2000 is very good. It makes it so much easier to see your screen rather than like looking to the side with the upper motor on the other gimbals I've used. And it's a nice feature and it feels premium. It looks nice too, and I think it also makes it a bit easier to make it more portable, because this one, the Aircross, has a bigger form factor because of that kind of like upper motor. And it doesn't really matter if you have a flip screen on your camera, but it also makes it easier to access that touchscreen if you have a touchscreen on your camera as LCD. The base plate for the FeiyuTech AK2000 is a Manfrotto plate. I actually was able to put my other Manfrotto plate that came with my Aircross on it, and it worked just fine. However, this plate is much better. It's probably one of the better plates to use with the gimbal because it has a large mounting area. You can mount it up on the top area or on this lower section, and very versatile. And if you had a Manfrotto tripod that supports the plate, you could take it off the gimbal with the very, very, very nice quick release and then put it on your Manfrotto head tripod. However, I have a Manfrotto tripod, except it's much older and doesn't have that type of newer style head, so I just take my time and unscrew the camera and put it back on the other plate and then put it on that tripod, which it's sitting on right now. The menu settings on the FeiyuTech AK2000 are pretty nice and easy to scroll through. I mean, I forgot that you could swipe, and then I found out that you could swipe, so then that's how I figured out how to get to the other axis of the menu. So I don't know why I wasn't able to control my T6i with the control cable. I don't know if it was because I was using the wrong cable. I was using this one, which was like the headphone jack cable to the tiny headphone jack cable, which might actually be a Panasonic cable, but none of the other cables looked like they went into my camera, so I used that one. Didn't really work. I don't really need it. I shoot in manual, just adjust on the camera. It was probably just a weird thing I did on my end, but it is nice to be able to change it on the gimbal rather than having to reach up and possibly like upset the balance of it by putting your hand on and changing the exposure settings on your camera. It is better in terms of like top heavy weight. I mean, it's just an extra bit of like a few grams on top of the camera, but I could just slide the microphone on. No real problems. The motors on the AK2000 are very strong and can get you through basically whatever you need it to. However, motors do have a problem, and that's something I want to bring up. When you're walking with the gimbal and you're just walking, like if you want to do like a hyperlapse sequence, you might have saw this in the footage. You probably did. It was pretty prominent. I didn't learn how to fix it until after, so this is something I find useful. This thing doesn't have a dead angle. I don't know why. I didn't find any settings in the app to be able to change the dead angle. Basically what that is when you are holding the gimbal, you sometimes twist it a little bit, and a dead angle will like correct that and like won't twist the gimbal. But so it doesn't have that. So whenever I was walking and I slightly twisted a bit, it would pan. So all those clips were in normal times or sped up, and if it was sped up, you could see it a lot more prominently, and you would see just like the image kind of like pan from side to side. The way to get rid of this is to use lock mode, and lock mode will basically just put the gimbal in lock, and then you won't be able to pan or turn. So even if you twist, you don't twist the actual camera, it just stays in place. And if you're walking forward, and then if you want to, this is where the trigger comes in handy. So the way I fixed it, of course, after I took the all those videos and made it into a montage, was you just click on the trigger to pan, and it will turn your panning axis. It will also, if you make it too if you make too large of a movement, it will point it up, but just if you keep it nice and level and hold the trigger to turn it, it will turn, and then once you let go of the trigger, it will go right back to being locked. So that's actually a really useful feature to have. However, I wish they did have a dead angle. I'm sure they could add it in like a software. FeiyuTech, if you're watching this video, just I think you could put some kind of like correction for the twisting of the camera. That would be great. Yeah, that's basically my only complaint with this gimbal, besides it being a little heavy for me. I mean, I've been spoiled by using the Moza Aircross. That thing is insanely light, however, it has a smaller capacity for cameras, and being able to mount a full-frame DSLR to a gimbal that is not even $400, that's pretty good. My Aircross, I tried mounting the 60 to the Aircross once, it didn't really like it at all. So yeah, the FeiyuTech AK2000, very good for the price. I actually highly recommend it. If you are interested in buying this gimbal, there's a link in the description. You can get 10% off the gimbal. Highly recommend it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Rocco. Feel free to subscribe if you like the video, drop a like, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.